Hello and welcome to ArcGIS Mastery course. My name is Asir Swalam, and this is our last lesson in this course where we will learn more about the basics of ArcMap so you can have more tools to use in your GIS projects on ArcMap. Today we will open our editing MXD that we saved in the editing lesson. Then we will check all the options available in the table of content and see how we can arrange and view the layers. After that, we will check the layer options and the layer properties where we can define the labels and the symbology for the layer. Then we will open the attribute table of the layer and see all the functionalities we can use in the attribute table. Also, we will take a look at how to do selection for the features and how to do attribute and spatial selection as well. And we will share our data on ArcGIS Online so we can view and use our data online. And finally, we will see how can we create the map layout to print the map and share it with anyone. So let's jump to ArcMap and see how can we do that. Okay, now we have opened the ArcMap on an empty template. We have nothing here on the map. As we discussed in the slides, we will start by opening our MXD. So we're gonna come to open here and we're gonna navigate to our editing course. And we're gonna open the data. We're gonna open the editing MXD that we saved previously in the editing course. Let's open this one. And if you remember on this specific MXD, we have shapefiles and we have feature classes, and we also created routing or network dataset that we added to the map. So, and we have groups here. One have feature classes and another one have the shapefiles. And we can also come here and create another group and call it routing and add all the routing layers to it, so we can have it more organized. Now, the second thing we will look at is we're going to focus on this area here, the table of content. And the table of content or TOC is where we have all our layers listed and we can view it in different ways. So let's start by looking this top area here. Here you just select how you want to view your layers. So for example, here it said listed layers by drawing order. So here, which layers on top of each other are going to show up on here and which group. And you can rearrange them by bringing it down, bring it to the top, and chose X here because this one is not going to be visible because the base map is on top of it, and the base map have to be the last one on the bottom. So we should bring this on the top, anywhere on the top, it will be okay. So if you see this X anytime, that means that this map is not going to be visible, or this layer is not going to be visible. So let's put our routing back here. The second option here is to list by source. And that means if you remember our editing course, when we enable an editing session, it asks us, like right now, it let us know which data source we need to open for editing. That's the same thing here. It lists by showing the source. So here, for example, it shows that all the feature classes we have on the map is actually coming from this geodatabase that we created before, and all the shape files coming from this folder location. And the routing or the network data set is coming from this network data set, and this is a name for it, and that's an ID for it. And here you can show the layers by visibility. So it shows you which one is visible. If I came here and select this layers, it's going to show you that this is a layer that is selected, and it shows you that which layers you can select on the map by having this icon here enabled. So that means that I can only select the parcels because this is the one that enabled here. So for example, if I come here and I make a selection on all these features, it's going to only select the polygons. So this view here, it just lists the layers by which one is selectable and can be visible. So I want to enable like the streets and the parcels and the intersections. And when I do this right now, it's going to select all the features in front of me. The next is list by selection. And here it shows you the layers that you are selected. So for example, if I clear selection, you will see that all these layers have been 0. But when I select one polygon, it's going to tell me that you are selecting one polygon from the parcel layer. And if I select all of them, gonna show me that I have 9 lines in the street, 4 lines in the 4 points in the intersection, and 3 in the polygon. And I can unselect it from here like that. So, and here is also like some other options that ask you for the selection. Do you want to show the selected features in the selected list? If I disable this one, I say OK. When I select this, it's not going to show the same way. It's just going to show how many features selected, but it's not going to show anything else like it did before. Like when I select this one, I say OK. You're going to see that now it shows me like which features exactly is selected. It's just an extra option for you based on what you need. So this is the options here to just view the layers. We're going to go back to our main one. And actually, I'm going to remove the routing because we are not going to use it in this lesson. So I'm going to actually delete this entire thing. And also, I'm going to remove the shapefiles because I don't need it. I'm going to keep the base map and the feature classes. So here, the second thing, we want to look at the layer options. And the layer options is when you right-click on any place here, what's happening when you right-click on the base map, what is happening when you right-click on the feature class, or on the group layer, or on the like head group or the main group. So let's just start by right-click here and see what options we have. We have the add data that we used before. We can create a new group layer that we created to add layers inside of it. We can add new base map, similar to the one we have. We can copy a layer. Let's copy this one. And we can paste it under layers. And it's going to create a copy of the layer that we created. Let's remove it again. And here we can turn off all the layers. As you're going to see here right now, that all the layers have been disabled and the map is empty. If I right-click on it again and say turn on all layers on, I'm going to see them back. I'm going to clear the selection. We have some selection here. Let's clear it. Let's go back again and see what else we have. We have expand or collapse all. Let's click collapse. I'm going to collapse all the layers. Let's click expand. They're going to expand all of them for me. And here we're going to check the visible scale range. The visible scale means that you set at the scale where this layer is going to be visible. So right now, if I select minimum scale, this is the minimum scale that this layer is going to be visible. If I zoom out a little bit more to a larger scale, the line's going to disappear or the streets will disappear. If I zoom in, it's going to show up again. I can do the opposite. Let me come here first and go to this scale. I want to clear this scale and set maximum scale. And maximum scale is the opposite, where anything smaller scale is going to disappear, but it's going to show up on larger scale. And you can set the range where this layer is going to be visible on certain scale. You can set a range between this scale and this scale, show it or hide it. You can choose these options however you want. And the reason to use this sometimes if you have a lot of data on your map, and it's really good to set the scale for when this layers is going to be visible. So the map doesn't look very busy and it just like show the right data when you zoom in and zoom out. So we're going to clear the selection, the scale again, and see what else we have. So we also have zoom to layer, where if you are in a different scale and you want to zoom where your layer at, you right click and you click zoom. It's going to add your layer in front of you. When you click on any layer, you have the open attribute table where you can access your attribute. You can use join, and this is really a good thing to use sometimes. For example, if I want to see which, I want to join the intersections with the streets, I will come to the intersections and I say join. So this gives me the option to create another layer that's going to join these points or these intersections with the lines that intersect with it. So I'm going to come here and say I want to join data from another layer based on a spatial location. And the other layer is a street. And for each point on my points layer, I want to have all the attributes of the other line. And my output will be saved in here and it's going to be added to my map. So if I click OK, it processed and it created another layer for me, and this layer have 4 points. And if I open the attribute table, it's going to show me the data for the street. And this tool is really good to combine data together so you can have one location. For example, if someone came and told you for this intersections, I wanted to see, let's clear the selection here. I want to see which streets are touching this intersection. This is specific points. I want to see which streets are actually in this intersection. You do the join. So right now you have another layer that shows you that this intersection is connected to street 1. Let's remove this one and see what other options we have. We have a selection where you can select all the features in this layer, and you can also clear the selection. And the selection, we have a lot of options in the selection that we will come later. We'll come to it later. So let's see what else we have. We have the selection, we have label features, and label features will add the labels to the lines. And how you can define, like as you see here in the previous lesson in the editing, we were able to add street 1. We named this street 1, street 2, street 3. Now I can see the names labeled on the map for me. And we're gonna see in a minute how we can do this and change how the names look like the color or the size of the label when we go to the layer options and layer properties. Here you can start editing from here too, same thing as here, but if you wanted to directly start editing on this is specific street, this is an easy way to start an editing session from here. The data here, you can export the data. Let's see what kind of export we have. We can export it to another layer and save it somewhere else. So we can have a copy from it saved somewhere different from the one we are working on. And also you can save it as a layer file, and you can open the properties. So when we open the properties right now, we see here a lot of tabs. But before we take one of them, let's go to the labels tab. And as you see here, the color is red, it's bold, and here's the details for how the label is going to look like. For example, let's come here and change it to blue or black and remove it and make it italic and say apply. You're going to see that's changed here. So that's where you change your label, and there's so many options here that you can make it as a symbol. You can choose the font, the color, and you can really change it however you want. So here you can disable it from here, so it's not going to be visible anymore. That's one of the properties of the layer that you can define from here. So let's start in the layer properties from the beginning. I'm going to go to the general tab, where you can change the layer name, and you can write a description about it. You can set the visible scale here as well, and you can set between this scale and this scale. This layer gonna only be visible at this scales. I'm gonna remove this one because we said it before. I'm gonna click apply. I'm gonna go to source tab, and the source tab, it tells you where this feature class is located, the actual folder path to it, and which web mercator it's using, or which spatial reference it's using, and other information about it. And you can actually change the source for it. So for example, if you have your streets saved somewhere else, you can navigate and say, okay, now this is my data source for the streets. Selection, you can change how the selection look like. This is a symbology for the selection. And you say you can change the color if you want. You can make it however you want. Display here tells you do you want to make it transparent, and which field do you want to use for the labels, and some other options that you can try and play with. Symbology here, you can change the symbology. Same thing when we do it from here, you can change it from here, but in an advanced way, in a way that you can come to the categories and say, for example, I want my lines to have a different colors based on the length. So I selected the length from here. I select the unique values. I select the length, and I say add all values. So right now I have all the length of my lines, and each line gonna have a different color based on the colors schema I choose from here. So if I choose this one, each line gonna have a different color based on the length of it. So this one here, I'm gonna just make it more visible. If I click apply, you're gonna see that all the colors have been changed based on the length. So for example, you can use this when you have streets like longer than 1 mile, it can be in green, or shorter than 1 mile, it can be in red. You can do this through here. And we have so many other options here that you can review and try and play with to see what's the difference it can do to your map. I'm going to go back and return it to its default one. Okay, apply. Fields. And here you can enable any fields. You can say, I want to sort these fields in a certain way, ascending, descending. And you can say, I want to show which fields you want to show when you do identify or the attribute table, and which one you don't want to show. For example, if I said I don't want to show the length anymore, I can click OK. When I identify a line, the length is not visible anymore. Not the shape length, but the length. And when I right click here and open the attribute table, the length is not here. If I bring it back and say OK, OK, now it show up again, and it show up here as well when I do the identify. Now the shape, the length show up again. So you can set up how your field's gonna look like. You can rearrange them, make the object ID in the bottom or on the top. It's totally up to you. And some more options here, like choose the field name instead of the field alias. So many options you can change. And here's the definition query. And the definition query is to create like a condition that's gonna show specific features based on this condition. And the way to do this is click on Query Builder. And for example, in the streets, we're gonna say, I want to show only the streets that have length more than, I don't know the actual values. So I'm gonna click Get Unique Values. And I see here that the values is different. So let's select the shape length instead, Get Unique Values. So here we have like 46 and 55 and 100 and 200. So I want only to show the shape length. I will double click on shape length. It show up here. It's basically creating a query where it select all from street where shape length is bigger than 200. Or I can select the value from here. For example, instead of writing 200, I can select I want to know anything bigger than 247. When I click OK, apply, it's going to only show 3 lines that is actually longer than 247 meters. I can come here again. I say, okay, now I want to show smaller than 100. I'm going to hide the others and show, click apply. I'm going to show this one because this is the only one that is smaller than 100 in length. So if I delete this and click apply, it's going to show all the lines again. Labels, we check the labels. Routes, if you have a network dataset, you can set up how your route's going to look like, the colors and the size of it. And on the top here, something called hatches. This is like an advanced thing for that we're going to discuss in the ArcMap advanced course. But you can, of course, you can like try it and see what it does to you. And if you have any questions, feel free to contact me and ask me any questions. Joins and relates, it's the same thing when we right click here and we did the join time. And this options here, we don't have the right data for it, but this one can be used, for example, if you have a streets and you have data for the traffic along the day, you can use to show here, like you can create a time frame where it shows you the line from green to red based on what time of the day and how much the traffic is moving. You can do this from here. And here, the last option we have here, we have the HTML pop-up. And this is basically you define how the identify gonna look like when you have it as a pop-up. for the layer. You set up all the information here and you can set up an actual HTML script to make this identify called HTML pop-up to show you the information for the line in an HTML format. So you can change this however you want. You can make it, change the colors, change how it looks like with an HTML script. So here we covered all the properties for the layers, and same thing for the polygon and the points. Just gonna be sometimes different for the symbology. Some options gonna be available for the polygons, not available for the lines, but you're gonna see all the main things same for all the layers. Now let's open the attribute table and see how we can select from the attribute. So here we have our attribute for this streets. If I click anywhere here, it's gonna select the line for me. And I can select multiple if I want. And also I have an option here that can say switch selection. So what this one's gonna do is gonna unselect the selected and select the unselected. Just switch them, as you see here. At some point you might say right now, like, well, what would I need this for? Trust me, when you really have a lot of data, all of these options, you're gonna really have it handy to make you achieve what you want fast and quick. So I can also say zoom to selected. So it's gonna zoom to the selected ones. I can say clear selection. And here we have a lot of options for the attributes. We discussed before how to add a field. And here you can select by attribute, you can switch selection. So many things that already exist. And out of here, when you right click here, it already exists here as well. And some of these options we already used before. So we are not going to go through each one of them. And select by attribute, we're going to come to it in a second. And here you can say select all the records or show the selected ones. So for example, if I selected like some of the streets, I can say only show me the selected pictures by here, or show me everything. And as you see, there's on the bottom here, there's a tab say streets because I have the streets selected. But if I come here, I can select intersections. So I'm gonna have another tab for the intersections so I can switch between them and have easy access. That's like the attribute table in a quick way. If you write on a column, you can right click, you can sort them, you can have advanced sorting, you can field calculation, you can calculate the field based on a certain information. For example, I can come here and say for the names, I want the field calculation to be the object ID. I'll say, okay, I'm gonna take the object ID and put it in the street column, as you see here. So you can use the field calculation to set up the data here for however you want. The other thing is geometry, calculate geometry, and we used this in the editing lesson. And you can just turn off and turn on the field or freeze it. And freeze the field is if you have a lot of data and you want this field to be in front of you, like an Excel sheet, you can freeze it from here. You can delete the field, or you can change the properties of the field by changing the name, the alias, and the type of the field. That's for the attribute table. The second thing we will look at is a selection. As you see here right now, we have some features that is selected. So I'm going to clear the selection. And when I do the selection again, if I do selection like this, it's going to select everything for me. But actually what I want right now is to just select the streets. So I can come to the streets, right click on it, and come to the selection option and say, make this the only selectable layer. And when I do this, when I do the selection again, the same way, it's going to only select the lines. So I don't get a conflict of selection between the lines and the polygons. And the way to disable this option is to go back to list by visibility and say, I want this to be selectable as well and this selectable as well. Now, if I select them again, they're going to be all selected. Let's clear selection. And you can select by rectangle, you can select by polygon, like this. You can select by lasso, like this. So you have so many options to do your selection, or by line. So anything you're gonna intersect with this line gonna be selected. Like here, for example, if I draw a line from here to here, you can guess which feature is gonna be selected. Okay, exactly. It's this line, this polygon, and this line. I'm gonna clear selection, return it back as way it was. And now let's go to selection. There's so many different ways to select features. So this is selection by just like select on the map. And here we have select by attribute and select by location. We're gonna open the select by attribute and say, I want to select from the streets, any street that have street name not null. So let's see what is the options we have in the street name, what values we have. We can click get unique values. It's gonna tell me that you have street 1, 2, 3, and null. So I'm gonna say, okay, select all the features that is not, and I just click here, as you see, null. And I say apply. So it's selected for me. That means that this might be street 1, this might be street 2, and this might be street 3. If I make the opposite and say, remove this and say equal null, or I'm sorry, is null, apply, is gonna like select the opposite. And this is a really easy way to have a certain selection. So you need to know that, okay, now this lines is the one that have null street name, and I can select it and add the street name to it. And that's called select by attribute. Let's close this one. And actually this lesson takes longer than I expected, so I'm gonna call this part 1, and I'm gonna end this video and we're gonna continue on part 2. We'll see you in part 2.